a vanished freighter and an unanswered mystery beneath Lake Superior. More than 8 decades after it disappeared without explanation, the SS Arlington was finally discovered resting silently on the floor of Lake Superior, a ghostly reminder of a tragedy and a mystery that has never been solved. In 1940, as the world was shifting from the Great Depression into a wartime economy, life on the Great Lakes remained much the same as it had been for generations. Massive steel freighters still navigated those inland seas as they had since the late 19th century. Tough and reliable, yet vulnerable when nature turned against them. One of those ships was under the command of Captain Frederick John Burke, a seasoned mariner born in Midland, Ontario, in 1885. At 55 years old, Burke had decades of experience and a complex reputation, known for his quick temper, generosity toward his crew, and unmatched navigation skills. He had faced death many times on the water and even saved lives when others might have given up. Sailors nicknamed him Toddy Boo, a name born from a childhood speech impediment, and he wore it proudly. Burke was also famous as a storm captain, a man who trusted steel and instinct over forecasts. The SS Arlington was not a glamorous vessel. Built in 1913 by the Detroit Shipbuilding Company, she was a sturdy workhorse of the Great Lakes, originally named F.P. Jones and designed to navigate the narrow locks of the St. Lawrence River. Over the years, she changed ownership and names, eventually becoming the Arlington in 1925. For decades, she carried wheat, coal, and ore across the lakes without incident. In the mid-1930s, the Burke family purchased the ship to expand their towing and salvage company into freight transport. After her longtime captain retired in 1939, Frederick Burke, persuaded by his brothers, took command of the vessel in 1940. By the time she left Port Arthur, now Thunder Bay, on April 30, 1940, the Arlington was nearly 30 years old but still seaworthy. Carrying 98,000 bushels of wheat bound for Owen Sound, the voyage appeared routine. Alongside her sailed the larger freighter Collingwood. As they entered worsening weather, the Collingwood deliberately slowed, following the Arlington's radio direction finder through the storm. On board, First Mate Junius Maxey, a veteran sailor, ordered a course closer to the northern shore for safety, but when Captain Burke entered the wheelhouse, he overruled the decision and commanded the ship into open water. Crew members were shocked. Burke appeared distant, almost as if in a trance, muttering incoherently and retreating to his cabin. As the night wore on, the storm intensified. Waves battered the low-riding freighter, and water began flooding her decks. Hatch covers strained against the relentless force. By early morning, they had failed completely, allowing water to pour into the cargo holds. Maxey repeatedly called for Burke, who remained largely unresponsive. By 4:30 a.m., the situation was catastrophic. Bulkheads were bulging, rivets were popping, and the Arlington was listing heavily. Chief Engineer Fred Gilbert sounded the emergency whistle, rallying the crew as chaos erupted on deck. Lifeboats were launched, though only one was usable due to the severe tilt. Despite the imminent danger, Burke refused to abandon the ship. He gave few commands and seemed detached from reality. Even as the crew signaled SOS and prepared to abandon ship, he remained on the bridge. Helmsman Elmer Callum, the last to leave, pleaded with him to escape, but Burke stood motionless. At 4:45 a.m., the crew rowed away, watching their captain's silhouette fade into the storm. Minutes later, they were rescued by the Collingwood, but Burke was never seen again. The loss of the Arlington shocked the maritime community. Investigations revealed no mechanical failure, no overloading, and no reason the ship should have been lost. Attention turned to Burke. Why had an experienced captain ignored sound advice, isolated himself during the storm, and chosen to remain aboard? There was no tradition on the Great Lakes of captains going down with their ships, and Burke had a long record of bravery and competence. Some speculated about a mental breakdown or illness, but no definitive answer ever emerged. The story faded into obscurity, one of many tragedies claimed by Lake Superior. But in 2023, a sonar scan revealed a wreck 35 miles offshore, the Arlington, perfectly preserved where she sank. The discovery rekindled the mystery, yet the central question remains unanswered. Why did Captain Frederick Toddy Boo Burke steer his ship into a storm he could not survive and refuse to leave even as it sank beneath him? His reasons went with him to the depths, and there they remain, a haunting mystery locked within the cold, silent waters of Lake Superior. The legendary haunted ocean liner, the Queen Mary's unbelievable journey, off the sunny coast of California rests one of the world's most extraordinary and mysterious ships, the RMS Queen Mary. Unlike ghost stories whispered in dark corners or tales of vanished vessels lost beneath icy waters, this legendary ship remains very much visible, drawing millions of visitors every year. Yet, beneath her polished decks and grand interiors lies a history unlike any other, a tale of glamour, war, decline, reinvention, and a transformation into one of the most haunted destinations on Earth. The story of the Queen Mary began in 1934, when she was launched from the River Clyde in Scotland as one of the most ambitious engineering marvels of the 20th century. Stretching over 1,000 feet in length and designed for speed and luxury, she was built to dominate transatlantic travel. The ship quickly earned global fame, capturing the coveted blue ribbon for the fastest Atlantic crossing and cementing herself as the crown jewel of the Cunard Line, a worthy rival even to the legendary Titanic. When World War II erupted, the Queen Mary's destiny changed overnight. Her elegant interiors were stripped and repainted a dull gray as she was transformed into a troop ship, nicknamed the Grey Ghost. During the war, she ferried hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers across the ocean, and Winston Churchill even credited the ship with shortening the conflict by an entire year. However, as the decades passed and the jet age dawned in the 1960s, ocean liners became obsolete. Air travel was faster, cheaper, and more convenient, leaving once celebrated ships like the Queen Mary struggling with empty cabins and rising costs. By 1966, Cunard Line faced the inevitable. The golden era of transatlantic passenger ships was over. Many legendary vessels, including RMS Mauritania and RMS Olympic, the Titanic's sister ship, were sent to the scrapyards. But the Queen Mary was granted a different fate. A bold proposal from the city of Long Beach, California, offered not only more money than the scrappers but also a plan to preserve the vessel as a floating hotel, museum, and tourist attraction. In 1967, the ship completed her final voyage, not to New York, but to her new home in Long Beach, where she would embark on a second life. Her transformation was radical. Much of her machinery, including boiler rooms, engine rooms, and stabilizers, was removed, and even her iconic funnels had to be rebuilt due to corrosion. Her first-class staterooms were turned into hotel suites, opulent dining halls were converted into banquet spaces, and former public lounges became shops and event venues. By 1971, the Queen Mary reopened as a tourist attraction, offering visitors a unique blend of maritime history and modern hospitality. Over the decades, the ship experienced many highs and lows. Management companies came and went, financial struggles mounted, and new ideas emerged, from themed restaurants to grand exhibitions. The most surprising development came in the late 1980s when staff and visitors began reporting unexplained phenomena. Footsteps in empty corridors, ghostly figures near the old swimming pool, and chilling cold spots in deserted cabins. Embracing the ship's growing supernatural reputation, operators began offering ghost tours, which quickly became one of the Queen Mary's biggest draws. By the 2000s, the vessel's identity had shifted again. No longer known solely as a luxury liner or wartime troop ship, she had become one of the most famous haunted locations in the United States. Paranormal TV shows, ghost hunting groups, and Halloween events turned her into a cultural phenomenon. Attractions like the Dark Harbor, Haunted Maze, and the infamous Stateroom B340, said to be the site of a violent past, brought thousands of visitors eager to experience her eerie atmosphere firsthand. However, time has not been kind to the aging ocean liner. Engineering inspections revealed severe structural problems, corrosion in the hull, failing bulkheads, and decaying lifeboats. Despite millions spent on repairs, the cost of fully restoring the ship has been estimated at over $300 million. A daunting figure that has driven multiple owners into bankruptcy. The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 forced the ship to close temporarily. But public passion for the Queen Mary remains strong. Preservation groups, historians, and devoted fans rallied to save her, and the city of Long Beach took direct control of the vessel, pledging major investments to stabilize and restore her. Today, the Queen Mary stands as a living contradiction. A floating museum and hotel, a monument to maritime engineering, and one of the most haunted places on the planet. More than 80 years since her maiden voyage, she continues to fascinate and terrify visitors from around the world. A relic of a bygone era and a stage for countless ghost stories, she remains afloat, the most visited, most famous, and most haunted ocean liner ever built.